Of course, you're always going to have times where you fall off any sort of goal or eating plan or anything that you're doing where you have a step back, but that's completely fine. It's how we get up and, carry on.
Hey, Aurora, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me.
It's, I'm excited to have you on. We've got some really cool stuff we want to get into. But as always, before we get into the conversation, I like to start with a really simple question. What's the sweatiest you've ever been?
Okay, so probably what we're going to be by the end of the sauna, but when I was comp prepping in Bali, I was training really, really hard there, and I would do boxing in Bali, which if you've been to Bali, which I'm guessing you have, is pretty sweaty just, when you're walking down the street. So when I was boxing in Bali, literally as I was boxing, you could just see sweat just flinging across the room and it was just pouring off me. So, and I was actually doing some sparring as well. So yeah, there was just sweat everywhere, and that would have to be, I'd say, probably the sweatiest I've ever been boxing in Bali, in humidity. But I mean, also I lived in Dubai as well. So Dubai gets pretty hot. And sometimes you'd be walking to a business meeting in Dubai and you'd just be sweating, just walking. But yeah, boxing in Bali.
Yeah, Dubai, I've only spent a couple of hours in Dubai when I was heading to Europe. But I remember getting off the plane and then getting onto this bus to transfer to a different terminal. And it was heat that I've never even felt before. It didn't feel super humid, but it was you just walked into a wall of heat.
Yeah, it's like a smack you in the face heat.
Yeah, totally. It was uncomfortable. What were you training for in Bali? Were you specifically training boxing, or were you doing Muay Thai?
No, so when I was in Bali, I was actually comp prepping for it was the IMBA, so fitness competition, so your bodybuilding, I guess. But boxing I love boxing. So I have been boxing, I guess, on and off since I was 18 years old. And when I was comp prepping, I was actually going through quite an emotional time in my life as well. So boxing was for my mental sanity. For me, when I box, it's almost like I get into, that flow state where, right, especially if you're sparring, where everything else falls away, because if you don't just concentrate on what you're doing, you might get punched in the face, or it really brings me into the moment and I get into that flow state. Also, when I cook, it does that for me as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. What were you kind of going through at the time that you found boxing to be so sort of helpful for?
I was going through a long-term relationship breakup. And so, yeah, it was a really challenging time in my life. And I found that, and I was also getting ready to compete, doing the bodybuilding competitions. And I found that for me, and I've always been this way, I guess, is that boxing for me, or doing some sort of movement and training, just helps. It releases those good endorphins. It keeps me in check and keeps me grounded. And I guess you can, for me, when I'm training, I can almost lose yourself for a moment where you can just be solely focused on the task at hand, as opposed to what's happening in life, at that time. Mm. So you can check out for a little bit, enjoy yourself, and then step back into whatever you're dealing with.
I don't think I'd want to be facing you when you were in flow in the boxing ring. I feel like you'd be fierce. Yeah, right. And so the boxing wasn't the main focus for you though, right? You were focused on the bodybuilding side of it. Tell me more about that.
So I have had a boxing fight before, but during that time when I was the sweatiest was when I was getting ready to do a competition. So I had just competed in IFBB, which is one of the largest bodybuilding federations, and I had just done the Arnold's over in Melbourne. So it was the first time the Arnold Schwarzenegger Arnold's competition had been held in Melbourne. And I placed, what did I place? I placed third at the Worlds at the Australian competition. And then I went to Bali. My sister was living in Bali at the time, and I was comp prepping to do the INBA, which is the Natural Bodybuilding Federation. So I was comp prepping there, and I was there for about 3 weeks and just training for that, and getting up each morning and I was doing metabolic cardio work, and then doing a heavy weight session, and then I'd come back and box in the evening.
And had you always wanted to be doing like bodybuilding competitions, or was that something you just kind of found your way into given what you were going through at the time?
It was a bucket list thing. So yeah, it was on my bucket list, and especially after I'd finished doing the boxing fight, which I really enjoyed, but I realised that I was also studying kinesiology at the time, and I was doing a neurological unit, and obviously getting punched in the face is not good for the brain. And, I thought I can't continue doing boxing, it doesn't do anything for my neck, it's not good for my brain. But I found that after doing a boxing fight and training for something, I was like, I need something else to train for. So I thought, I'll do the complete opposite. I'll get into, I'll go stand on the stage in a bikini instead. So I started training for that, and I just wanted to, I was 37 at the time. So I just really wanted to, push my body and see what I could achieve. And it was really important to me that I did it naturally as well. It was, when I didn't really tell many people I was doing it until I was pretty much getting on stage. And it was a bit of a shock for people. I was like, yeah, I'm going to wear all this, this fake tan and this big full face of makeup and get on stage in a teeny weeny bikini. It was just to really take me out of my comfort zone and to push my body and see where I could take it, and to do that naturally and mature age as well. So
yeah, I think that's awesome. It's like just the power in proving to yourself what you can do, even at 37, not that that's old. I feel like I'm going to get in trouble now. But what I'm trying to say is a lot of people who compete, it's often when they're, they're my age or even younger, they're mid-20s. So I think, yeah, that's awesome. And I totally relate to that too. It's like people always ask why I want to run a half marathon, or why I did run a couple of half marathons. It's like, because I just like knowing that I can do that sort of thing, if I really want to. And so you mentioned that you were doing it naturally. Let's talk a bit more about that, because I find that fascinating. There seems to be always kind of two routes that people go when they start doing bodybuilding, and there's some amazing natural bodybuilders in the world now. And even yourself, you sent me some photos of you yesterday, and I was like, wow, like you looked incredible. And so why was that kind of important to you, and how did you go about doing it naturally?
I've, from a young age, been interested in natural health. And I think when I was 24 and actually living in Melbourne, I decided that I wanted to study naturopathy. And so I've always lived, I haven't always lived a really healthy life, but I've always had balance where, when I was younger, obviously I liked to go out and have fun, but I would still always make sure that I was really checking in and, green juices and taking, lots of different superfoods and things like that. So there'd be a balance. I really just wanted to do that naturally, because if you go down the path of taking synthetics, you really, and especially for a female, for our hormones, you can really mess up your body. And for me, I hadn't had children yet. I've got one little girl, and she's nearly 2.5. And I knew that I did want to have a child. And so for me, I was like, there was no way that I was going to do it with drugs anyway. But that messing with the hormones was even more important for me to go, no, I have to do this naturally. And I know that you can do it naturally. Obviously, if you're going to take enhancements, it's going to get you the result a lot faster, but it's also going to wreak so much havoc on your body. And I guess traditionally with bodybuilding, it's high carbs and it's slow, fasted cardio. I mixed it up, and I did keto. I did predominantly plant-based, so I went more green keto, which I'll chat about in a moment. But I mixed it up and I trained more like an athlete, because I found, coming from a boxing background, that getting into the bodybuilding training was this, slow weights. When I first started training, I was like, this feels like I'm getting less fit. Like this competition is called Fitness Competitor, and I feel like I'm actually getting less fit than when I'm boxing.
Right.
And I was like, this doesn't make sense in my mind. I know that you can get the results that way, but for me, I found that I was like, I want to train, I guess, more like an athlete, which is I want to do metabolic cardio work instead. Yeah, which is going to rev up your metabolism and have it going, burning for a lot longer than if you're doing a slow, fasted cardio. So I did metabolic sprints on the bike and things like that. I still did a really heavy weight training session. And the boxing I didn't need to do. The boxing was, as I said, was for my mental sanity. The boxing was also so I could eat more food. The boxing was so, like, if I didn't eat something that was following, I guess my the way that I was eating, I was like, I'll just do a boxing session instead.
I'll just go and punch some bags for a while.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just eat more of that and I'll box later. And when I get into diet with that, so for me, when I first started doing it again, I started saying that more sort of high carbs. And even though I wasn't hungry, I wasn't satisfied. I was like, this, and different people, by individuality of each person, some people it works really well for. For me, I went, this doesn't like it. And there was also, I was having fruit in my diet. And I went, no, this doesn't actually work for me in what I'm wanting to achieve. So I went more a green keto, which is predominantly plant-based. I still had a little bit of organic grass-fed butter and I still had some fish in my diet. I used sprouted fermented brown rice protein powder. I did use BCAAs as well, natural ones.
What are BCAAs?
So it's your branched chain amino acids.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. But yeah, when doing that, my diet was basically like greens for days. Like when you're doing keto, I could have greens for days. So I'd have a massive bowl of salad. And when I was doing that, there'd be like avocado and hemp seeds and olive oil because I've got all those beautiful, nourishing, good fats. Whereas when I was doing it with the higher carbs, but doing the really low fat route, I was hungry still. I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't physically hungry, but I was like, something's missing. And that for me is fat. Fat, it's really integral and important to our hormones as well. So for me, when I was comp prepping, it consisted of, liquid nutrition as well. So smoothies with your protein powders, but that would be like cold press, cucumber, celery, parsley, ginger, lemon, with some of the protein powder, coconut oil or some MCT oil, which is just, it's fantastic nutrition. Like it's liquid, so it just breaks down really easy straight into the body. I would do massive big salads. I would do lots of sauteed greens, a little bit of butter, lemon juice, salt, some fish. So I nut butter for days out of the jar. The one thing I did stop doing, which I stopped having fruit. Obviously, when you're doing keto, fruit is a bit of a no-no. So for me, and where I sit with that is that with keto, I did, I guess, more of a cyclical keto where you're having a little bit more carbohydrates. So sometimes I would have some fruit, and that's when I'd train and do some more boxing. But I found that obviously with the fruit, whenever you're having anything sweet, it spikes, insulin in your body, and what that's floating around, your body's not burning fat.
Right.
And for me, when I was competing, I got down to 7% body fat, which is very, very lean for a female. Obviously not as lean as when they do I guess the bigger muscle bodybuilding competitions.
Still pretty lean though. 7%'s there's not much.
Yeah, it was pretty lean. And for females, most of the time we lose our menstrual cycle around 10% body fat. I still menstruate the whole way through my competitions as well, and that's because my body, deemed itself healthy enough to still conceive.
Yeah.
With fruit, I cut that out for that time being. When I have done keto in my life, in my current lifestyle, I'll still have fruit, but I'll ferment my fruit. Okay. So, I'll often ferment the fruit, which means that it makes all the nutrients more bioavailable as well. So I guess for me, when I was doing the competition, I cut out the fruit, and I'd have a little bit here and there, but in general, day-to-day life, it's not something that I would highly recommend because fruit is so nutritious and amazing tasting and good for us. So yeah, but if you're following a keto lifestyle, then you can still do that, but you can just ferment your fruit instead.
Yeah. And so when you were actually prepping and into the keto hardcore, what else was going on in your body? Because obviously the goal there was to be building muscle and getting fit for the competition. But I find sometimes, like when we have certain goals around how we want to eat, or we're eating a particular way to achieve a certain goal, there's other things in the body that get compromised. Did you find anything, or what else was kind of happening around that time? It's great that you managed to keep your cycle. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, what else?
No, because I got it on the day of a competition. I was like, are you serious?
Maybe not the most amazing time.
Yeah, so doing keto. So what I would say is that when I would meet with some of the other girls that I was competing with, the difference for me, and then I'll go into how I felt as well, was they were like, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm sore, I'm inflamed, I don't want to keep training. And whereas for me, doing it keto, more green keto, I felt amazing. Like, because obviously when you're doing keto, it brings down inflammation in your body, and especially if you're doing it more plant-based, where you're having all those beautiful, nourishing plant-based fats like avocados, olives, olive oil, coconut, things like that. So they're really nourishing fats, as opposed to your bacon, cheese, and cream.
Yeah, and butter.
And butter. Well, grass-fed butter I'm a fan of. But I found that I felt really mentally clear as well. I had so much energy. I felt my body didn't feel inflamed, so I was healing really well. I kept myself really alkaline the whole way through, because obviously when our body's alkaline, we're in a healing state. And like I was making sure, and because I was going through a really trying time in my life, because it was a huge relationship to unpack. There was a lot of different things that were sort of going on. But it meant that I was making sure I got the right amount of sleep that I had to have. I made sure that I was, getting down to the ocean and getting grounded. I was, doing things that gave me joy, as well as training, like spending time with family or friends. All of those things that holistically we need to be to having, optimal lifestyle. But I felt that I found amazing. I didn't find that there was, the only compromise for me is that I'm a massive, massive foodie, and I think in flavour. And so I had to really turn that down a little bit, because, I'm always recreating foods and thinking about food. So I had to switch that over with keto to be more in line with a keto sort of eating, way of eating, which meant that, I wasn't making an amazing fruit salad and things like that. So that would probably be the hardest thing I found. But I found that I didn't have any hunger cravings. I didn't have any sugar cravings. I also was doing food that obviously supported gut health as well. So I was adding like sauerkraut into my salads and things like that, which is amazing for taking out hunger cravings. But I just found all in all, and my body didn't feel inflamed. Like my coach was actually saying to me, I did my nutrition and he was doing my training program for me. He's like, can you stop training so much? He's like, you don't need to train. Like, he's like, you don't need to do the boxing. And I was like, he's like, how do you have the energy? I was like, I feel fantastic, and I had great energy. So for me, I felt really, really good.
Yeah, it sounds like you found a good balance between training, but like you said, having that holistic approach around going to the beach and doing some grounding and spending some time, having that relationship. I find sometimes when, certainly in my life, I get focused on something and then I go so hard, and then you kind of get tunnel vision and you forget everything else, which is also important. It sounds like you found a good balance there. And were you I know some people when they do keto, they get really into it and they measure their ketones and those kind of things. Were you doing that, or were you just being conscious of not having too many carbs, keeping it high fat and those sort of things?
Yeah, I wasn't. And even when I was competing, I wasn't somebody who was going, I'm eating this many calories, because, we all know calories in, calories out. A calorie, you can have something with McDonald's, or you can have a bowl of salad. It's a totally different nutrition. I was not doing it that way. I was really I guess, treating myself more like an athlete. I was like, I need to fuel my engine. So I like to think of my body as an engine. I'm like, I need to put the right fuel in my engine so my body can give me more bang for the buck, give me more longevity, give me optimal health. It's going to heal quickly. And I know to do that. If I'm hungry, like whenever I was hungry, I would eat. I wasn't like, oh, I feel really hungry, but I shouldn't eat because I'm only supposed to have this many calories. If I was hungry, my spoon was in the nut butter jar and I was eating nut butter because fat makes us feel satisfied and then we're not hungry. You know, and I really found that while I was doing that, because you're having so many nourishing fats that you don't get as hungry while you're doing that. And yeah, so it was, for me, I found it was pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I like that. And this is maybe a bit of a public service announcement, but I find like if we're eating clean foods, whole foods like you were, even in that case where you were focusing on eating keto, like if we're eating cleanly, perhaps don't need to be so concerned about the amount of calories we're putting in. You know, I remember once I came out of I was coming out of a water fast a couple of years ago, and it was like a week in, and I had this big bowl of salad, and I probably ate a little bit too much. And I was telling my sister, I was like, Cara, I was like, oh, I feel like my stomach feeling a bit interesting because I just ate a bit too much. She's like, oh, what'd you have? And I was like, oh, it was a simple salad. Like it was lettuce, tomato, capsicum, and some avocado. And she's like, Alex, shut up. And it was a real kind of moment for me to realize, like, yeah, you know, if you were eating a bit extra of whole foods, like we're not really doing any damage unless we're eating to the point of we're exploding. You know what I mean? So I like the way you were going about that, where it was kind of intuitive, it sounds like to me. You know, you weren't like kind of putting yourself in a box.
Yeah, and for me, with it, our body lets us know. Like, you know, as you said, it's that intuition, and that's what I do in my coaching practice, is getting people to check back in and learn to eat and follow their own intuition. And, you know, and I use this example when I do workshops or coaching, is that, you know, you can sit down and you can eat a whole bag of chips. Easy, yeah, because it's got that bliss point that they do between the sort of the sugar and the fat. But if you're sitting down and you're eating like that massive bowl of salad, and you can only eat a certain amount till your body goes, this is real food, and it goes, I've had enough nutrients, my engine's full, I can't have any more. And so our body, when we're eating real food, is fantastic at checking in and letting us know, you know, when we've had enough food. So it's getting back to learning how to listen to your body and monitoring the way that you feel the next day when you wake up. You know, how are my bowel movements? How was my sleep? You know, like for me, we don't really have much gluten in our life at all, but if I do, if I go to somebody's house, I'll eat whatever they cook me. But I'll wake up and my fingers will be swollen, my face will be puffy, and, you know, I know that you get a food hangover. I know that eating certain foods is going to affect your body in different ways. So when we're eating real food and nutrition and checking in with ourselves, we find that, you know, we can eat and nourish our body the foods that we need to actually eat. And our body actually also recognises that nutrition. So, and I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but for me it's interesting, being a mother, was the food that I ate, the body sort of registers it. And Lila, my daughter's body, she knows that nutrition that I was eating while I was pregnant with her. So her body then registers and recognises that food, as opposed to when we have something that's synthetic, our body goes, I don't know what to do with this. No, it goes, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do with it. And when you're not putting the right fuel in your body, and your body is constantly in a state of rebuilding itself, and you're basically giving it, you know, these building blocks that, you know, your body might go, I need, you know, cement to build this, and you go, oh, here, have some plastic to build this instead. Like it's, you know, it's sort of like the body needs the right fuel to, I guess, serve us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's a good tangent to go on. You know, when I came out of my longer water fast this year, we were just eating fruit, and I just really learned, like, I remember the first time I ate like heavier things. Like, I mean, we're still eating very cleanly, but even the first time I ate nuts after living off fruit for a month, and I had some nuts, I was like, oh, that feels different. Okay, yeah. This is a bit kind of heavier. It's a bit more work for my body to process that. And then we started dehydrating some foods and similar kind of experiences. And I really learned like why fruit is so good for the body is because it's so easy to digest. And like you said, the body's always doing its best to rebuild and to make us as healthy as possible. And so when we put foods like fruit in, we're not taking too much energy away from the body to cleanse and heal to digest that food, right? Because it doesn't have to do so much work compared to when we put in like 2 large fries and a Big Mac, or even something more heavy like some red meat or something. Like then the body goes, okay, I need to stop rebuilding for a while because I got to process all this stuff that we just put in. So yeah, I really like what you're saying there. And also I heard once it was like, if you're reading the ingredients and you don't know what it is, your body doesn't know what it is either.
Exactly.
And so
abort.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's going to struggle to process that as best as possible. And so when you were competing, then you were doing the keto, like what was your kind of day-to-day looking like during that phase?
So I was playing around with doing intermittent fasting as well, and I still do, especially when I was doing that heavyweight training session, because obviously when we're in a fasted state, our body releases more human growth hormone, so I could build more muscle that way. So I would get up, do my fasted metabolic cardio and my weight session, and then I would go straight back home and I would I'd have the cold pressed juicer out, and I do I do celery, cucumber, parsley, ginger, lemon, and sometimes I would blitz that up as well with a bit of frozen spinach or some sort of green from the garden or something like that. I would have a big scoop of protein powder in there. So that protein powder was that brown fermented sriracha rice. Excuse me, sorry. And I'd have some sort of like either coconut oil or MCT oil or something like that in the smoothie as well.
And was there a particular reason to use the MCT oil?
Yeah, so because I was doing the keto, you need obviously the fats, and fats helps deliver the nutrients into the body as well. So I would use either a coconut oil or an MCT oil. An MCT oil is medium chain triglycerides, and it just helps our body to convert that fat into energy more readily. And then I just, as I said, add some spinach in for fibre. But then you've got a really beautiful balance of, your carbohydrates, your fibre in there, your good fats and your protein. And with that as well, like it was because I just finished training, and when your body's in a fasted state, it's more readily able to absorb nutrients. So having something like a smoothie, like you were saying before with fruit, it's easy for it to break down and utilise that nutrients. Having a smoothie in a fasted state after training, it's just nutrients straight in. Yeah. The other thing I would also do with that is I would have another drink, which was the BCAAs, and I'd use an unflavoured one, so it had no flavour, because a lot of the ones on the market are flavoured and, with different flavours and additives and sweetener and all those fun sorts of things
we don't want.
Yeah. And I would have in there, to keep my body really alkaline, so it was in a healing state all the time, I would have spirulina, barley grass, wheatgrass, camu berry, chlorella as well, which helps the body rid itself of toxins. So I'd have water with all these green potions in there, and I'd just scale that back. And when I actually did the competition as well, because you dehydrate yourself on the day.
Yep.
Which is not optimal, but obviously, it's for that one day. But I made sure that, because when you're training, you're pushing your body into an acidic state as well, because you're breaking down muscle and you're rebuilding it. So for me, being alkaline when I was competing and just throughout life in general has always been really important. So on competition day, I'd be doing, because you'd limit how much water you'll have, like little shots of green powder and water just to keep me alkaline throughout the day as well. So yeah, I'm a little bit crazy.
That's good. Yeah, exactly. You're not called the holistic health nut for no reason. No, I love that, because there's that focus there around alkalinity, even in a moment where, people are dehydrating themselves, and that's typically not the healthiest thing to be doing. I like that there was still that focus there and that intent from you to do it healthfully in a way. And were you focusing much, like you'd train in the mornings, you'd have those amazing smoothies. Were you focusing much on like sleep, and what sort of things were you doing for recovery around that time?
So for sleep, I was making sure that I had at least 8 to 9 hours sleep for recovery. I was making sure, as I said, that I was getting grounded, especially when I was when I did the INBA, the World Championships were in Dubai. And so and obviously, and when I was doing the ones in Australia, they were in different places in Australia. So whenever I get anywhere that I was going, I get grounded. So like I remember when I did one of the competitions in Sydney, the Nationals, and it was like 11 o'clock at night when I arrived, the night before the competition, and I'm walking around the park and it's cold and it's freezing cold and I'm barefoot walking around the park getting grounded. That just really helps our circadian code and the rhythm of our body to adjust to the time zone that we're in, which is obviously really important for our sleep patterns, all those sorts of things. But obviously when you're competing for bloating and all those sorts of things as well, it just really helps the body tune in to where you are.
Did you walk around for like half an hour or?
Yeah, I'd just be walking around the park like some crazy lady with, this horrible spray tan on.
Like a hoodie.
Yeah. I had like this spray tan on. So I'm like, like that sort of orangey, really dark tan on, and walking around the grass with my tanned feet, just getting grounded, or getting down to the ocean whenever I could as well. And when you're saying what I did for, I guess, keeping myself in check during that time was, sleep was really, really important. Going and getting a massage as well, because I was absolutely, hammering my body. And then the nutritional component, as well as mental. For me, first and foremost, after our gut health is our mental health. Sorry, first and foremost is our mental health and then our gut health for me. So for mental health, it was really doing things that gave me joy, which were, people that, I guess, community and relationships with people that were really important in my life, and especially because I was going through that trying time, that I could just sort of check in, and that gave me joy to, have that connection with friends, family.
Yeah, I love that. Joy is, it's critical, right? I mean, you can be doing everything right. You can be sleeping well, you can be eating well, you can be exercising, but I mean, if you're not just having some fun,
Yeah.
you got to just laugh every now and then and have a bit of joy. So I like that. And so then, when did you finish up? When did you decide you'd kind of achieved what you wanted to achieve? What did you end up achieving? I went through and competed at the Worlds. So when I first started competing, I started in January of 2015. I did 5 competitions back to back during that time, and I finished up in June at the World Championships. When I first started, I wrote down a goal because I still live in Dubai. I was like, I will compete at the World Championships in Dubai and place first or place. And so when I actually was at the Worlds, obviously I, sort of did that thing that everyone does. As I got there, I was like, why am I here? Like, all these people look amazing. I don't, am I good enough to be here? La, 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 all this self-doubt.
Yeah. And I placed first, so I won at the World Championships for my division, which my division was fitness competitor. So that is, I guess it's not super muscly, but it's fairly muscly, but lean, abs, those sorts of things. I placed first at the Worlds, and and it was at the age of 37, and I just remember sitting, back that next morning when I woke up after the competition and just going, wow, that was the goal that I wrote down, and having a little chuckle to myself and going, like, it's amazing when we actually write down a goal or set a goal that our true north just sort of hones us in that way, that journey along the way of getting there. I'd sort of think about it, but I was always just trying to be the best that I could possibly be, because when you start looking around, and I was like, wow, these people look so amazing. Am I good enough, all those sorts of things. But yeah, getting there and actually achieving that goal was an amazing experience. The whole journey was an amazing experience to be able to put myself through that experience and that discipline as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the experience and really enjoyed the discipline.
And so the Worlds, were they in Dubai?
Yes. So, and they're at different places each year. So the Worlds when I was doing were in Dubai.
That's convenient.
That was when I wrote down the goal, because I wanted to have a holiday back in Dubai, and I was like, we'll place. I was chuckling as I wrote it. We'll place or win at the Worlds, and I was like, yeah, that's going to happen.
No, that's cool. And so, is goal setting a big part of your life nowadays? Then are you still writing goals down and doing that sort of stuff?
I'm a writer. Like I guess I'm in my 40s, so I'm old school where I write everything down. I'm always writing lists. I don't do it on the computer. I'm always writing lists out and goals. Definitely for me, I'm a strong believer in setting a goal and writing it down, because as I said, then our body just, and it doesn't mean the journey along the way might change and our goal might change, and that's completely fine. But setting an intention and then moving towards that direction makes a huge difference to just going, oh yeah, I'd like to do that. But if you're not then setting that goal and then setting the necessary steps in action to achieve that goal, then, you can't just wish it into fruition. You've actually got to take those necessary steps in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's your kind of process then, or do you have a process around setting goals? Like you write it down, well, obviously you get clear on what it is you want to achieve, you write it down, and then you mentioned then taking some action. So what's your kind of process around that?
So I guess I work backwards. So I will like to think, where would I like to be in 5 years' time? So that I get clear on that goal, and then I work backwards. Okay, what do I need to do to achieve that? So, it's all those little sort of steps. And with competing, it was like, okay, so I'd like to compete. I'd like to, get up on stage in an itty bitty bikini. When I first got my bikini, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But I was like, well, where do I start? Okay, so I've got to find somebody who's going to do my training for me, who's going to, I have done personal training before, but having somebody else do that for you. And my friend that I used, he is amazing and he trains lots of athletes. So I spoke to him about that. I then went, okay, well, I know that I need to focus on my nutrition. I know that I need to, I wasn't as regimented, I guess, as some people were there, I need to have this calorie, I was a little bit more I know nutrition, food, as I said, is my passion in nutrition. So I was just like, okay, well, I know I need good fats. I need lots of greens in my life. I need a good quality source of protein. I need to go to the gym, obviously. I need to, I need to make my body into a fat burning machine, which means, okay, keto. That's going to, but keto, green, I call it more green keto, where I'm going to be nourishing the body as opposed to, if you do keto the traditional way, it's going to work. If your goal is weight loss, it's definitely going to work. But when you're putting all those foods that can be, acid forming in the body, it's not highly beneficial. So for me, I was like, okay, so I'm going to do that. More plant-based. I'm going to make sure that my nutrition's, honed in. I'm going to make sure that I'm getting sleep. So I know that I need to do that to heal the body. So I just, I know that I need to research the federations that I want to compete in. I guess it's that groundwork. And in anything in life, and I find it easy sometimes to equate it to business, because we sort of treat business differently than we do our relationships or our goals and those sorts of things. But, in business and in work, if you say, I want to do this, like you say with your saunas, I want to sell X amount of saunas, you're like, okay, so what do I need to have in place? I need to have the right, sales team. I need to be putting out the right information, all of those sorts of things. It's no different to how we apply that to our goals in life, to how we apply it in our relationships as well. It's for me, the way we are as people and the way that we do things transfers across to our work, to our personal life, to our intimate relationships, to our goal setting, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely. There's that saying, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And sometimes sometimes that scares the shit out of me, because I'll be like, Alex, why did you do it like that? And I'm like, oh my God, do I do everything like this? But it's true, right? And I like what you said there. Do you also then write down those things that you need to do to get there? Or do you just kind of write down the goal and then you're kind of have all that stuff in your head and then you just kind of go and do it?
No, I break it down, because as I said, I'm a list person. So, guaranteed every single day I've got a list on my table that's tick, protein balls, tick, bone broth, tick, all those things are I like to tick them off. So I like to break it down. And I think and this is a big goal, but one that I like to think about is when I'm 80 years old and I'm sitting down in my rocking chair and I'm looking back on my life, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my relationship with my family, with my daughter, with my partner? What do I want to have achieved in this life? And it's like it is daunting when you look at that massive big picture, but at the same time, when you start chiseling it down, and like especially our focus, I guess, has been a lot around our daughter and, you know, trying to be as much as a conscious parent as I possibly can. And thinking about, okay, what, I guess fast forward thinking, going, what do I want Lila to remember about me? You know, when she's an adult, like when she's looking back on her memories as a child, and it'll definitely be there was a lot of cooking in the kitchen, there was a lot of food. But, you know, I want her to, you know, remember that there was a little love and very tactile and all those sorts of things that I guess are really important. So I really love that big goal thinking and checking in every now and then and going, is it still this? You know, am I still in line with my 80-year-old rocking chair goal? And yeah, then I break it down into bite-sized chunks because otherwise it can feel a little bit daunting sometimes. So that then would go down into, like, you know, as I said before, like in 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, next year. So, and just break it down into those small achievable steps. And the difference of when you're, which you would know, Alex, is when you're achieving those goals is that momentum that starts to pick up. And of course, you're always going to have times where you fall off any sort of goal or eating plan or anything that you're doing where you have a step back, but that's completely fine. It's how we get up and, you know, carry on in life. So yeah, for me, it's breaking it down to smaller goals, and I can see my head is going red and the red light's not helping me. You're smart. You picked the green light. You've done this before.
I don't know. It ended up on the green light in here. No, that's great. You know, I didn't even think we were going to get into goals today, but I'm glad we did because there was a great book I read called Life in Half a Second, written by an entrepreneur, Matthew Michaelwitz, who I was lucky enough to meet. And it's all about goal setting. And I remember in the start of that book, he says, like, if you got the length of the universe, like the total time the universe has existed in 3.8 billion years or something, and you condensed it down into a year, the amount of time that our life lasts as part of that is like, it's half a second. Right. It's so quick in the grand scheme of things. We're here for such a short amount of time. And, you know, he talked about that in the first chapter and basically ending with the question, like, so what are you going to do with your half a second? And then he just talked about setting goals. And in that book, he mentioned it was something like 1% of people set goals.
Yeah.
And then of that 1%, it was something like another just 1% actually write them down and like actually follow some sort of process. And I think, you know, we all hear about goal setting and, but so few of us do it. And when you actually do it, it's this amazing thing happens where, and I might be getting a bit spiritual here, but the universe, you put that intuition, that intention out there, and then the universe is like, okay, yeah, well, if that's what you want, here you go, you know, and it'll generally come in the form of something different. You know, the path will be not what you perhaps expected, but it happens. And like you said, I think whether in business or in personal life, it's actually the same kind of process. And when you put those things out there, I've certainly seen in my life, like a year later, like, oh, that's happened. Oh, and it actually happened even more so than what I'd, you know, set out to achieve in the first place, you know. So that's really cool. And yeah, I think there's something about actually scribing it into a piece of paper, like that mechanical experience and reading it, and it does something in the brain. So yeah, anyway, I'll get. I was
going to say, well, they have done studies, because I know with studying, they say that when you actually write something down, like we recall that information differently, and that's the way that I am. Like if I do something on a computer, like it's there, but it's sort of neither here nor there to me. But if I write something down, like I remember writing it down, like it's almost like it etches into my mind or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another part that about setting goals is the desire behind the goal.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if there is enough desire there, then you'll just make it happen, you know, and you'll figure out those things like, you know, I want to buy a house. Okay, what do I need to do that? And I need to save all this money. Okay, well, how do I need to, and you just kind of like nut it out. Whereas if there's low desire, maybe because that goal's really not for you. Maybe it's for someone you're trying to impress. I'm talking to myself here. And, then when that desire's low, when things get hard, which they will, if you don't have that desire there, you won't push through the suck,
And that is something that with my coaching clients, and in my relationship, we do goal setting as well. But with my coaching clients, when I take on a client, part of the initial consult or before they even see me is goal setting.
Yeah.
So, and this is one that it amazes me how many people get stuck with this. Yeah. Because it's not something that, we're so busy in life that when you ask somebody I want you to sit down and I want you to write down your goals and I want you to, and they're like, whoa. And like on the goal setting piece of paper that they give back to me is always like all these sort of scribbled down notes and there's bits crossed out and then they've run out of room to write everything, because once you start writing it down, you go, wow. Like at first they sort of will write 2 lines and go, I'm really struggling with that. I'm like, well, just put some time aside and just delve into it. And what you were saying before about that, that desire to achieve that goal is, I guess Anthony Robbins talks about it, that pain pleasure zone. So when I get somebody to write down a goal, like if I'm working with a client and they're like, oh, I want to be healthier, I'm like, okay. And why do you want to be healthier? What does healthier look like to you? And so we start sort of delving into that goal and we're like, and they're like, oh, I just I want to fit into my jeans. I'm like, but why do you want to fit into your jeans? Oh, because I'm going to feel good. Oh, okay. I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to be a good role model to my children. I'm going to feel confident within myself. And it's that when you start writing down all those things, that momentum starts to happen where you go, I can't not do this, because how can, it becomes compelling. And that's, I think, part of that goal setting process is, well, it's probably the most important bit is why it's compelling to you. Because otherwise, if you just write it down and you haven't put any sort of meaning behind it, it's just sort of this goal floating around, but you haven't really decided why you want it. I just do. Yeah, but why? So that's one thing that I really find with clients that they always come back to me and go, oh, I'm really struggling, because they want me to go, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, well, just, sit down this morning, have a cup of tea, and, just start writing it down, just start jotting it down. What does your goal look like? And we can, we'll go through it more. I might give them a couple of pointers, but that's one that I think in life we just don't sit down and give ourselves enough time to reflect on what we want to achieve, how we want our life, how we want to live our life, and checking into being conscious, because we live most of our life in our subconscious mind, which is 95% of the time. So that checking in is what I call it, checking in and being conscious and being present and aware and going, I'm not just running a program or a pattern in my head. This is what I want to do. Like I consciously want to learn how to do this, or I want to learn this skill or do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Not
we
running.
have said that, haven't we?
Yeah. Not running on that autopilot, right? It so often happens in life where it's like, oh, that year went by. Oh, what happened there? It's just gone. I think also it can certainly scare the shit out of people to have that, to think broadly for a moment. We get so caught up in life and we're just on that autopilot, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what am I doing here again? What do I want to experience in this half a second I have on the planet?
Well, somebody I read, or in a book or something, or maybe it was on Facebook, I don't know, but it was like with children, they say with your children, you've got 16 to 18 summers with them.
Right.
And when I read that, I was like, wow. Like when you go, because by 16 they're probably going to hang out with their friends. So it's like, you've got 16 summers with your child. And then when you started putting that, relative to life, it was like that for me was, certain things you hear and you're like, oh, you have that aha moment. I was like, wow, that's like, as you said, it's like that. It's like nothing. It's, we're getting into our third summer with Lila. So I always try, are we living the way that we want to live?
Yeah. I have a feeling you guys are certainly well on the way.
Most days. All of every now and then spiral.
And so you're coming out of then when you were competing and fast forwarding to where you are now, what's your kind of focuses on to do with your own health and your family's health at the moment? And how's your day-to-day routine kind of changed from what it was back when you were competing?
My routine has changed dramatically because I have a child. So before I guess I had the luxury of having I guess having to be more self-indulgent with my time, having a little person, and being that I want to make sure that I'm really present for her as much as I possibly can be. It means that for me, I get up early in the morning while she's usually still sleeping. I have some mornings where I'll sleep in, so she can come in and wake up, or sometimes she'll toddle into our room in the night. So, but most mornings I'll get up early and I will get up and go for a walk at the beach. Sometimes it's by myself. Listening to a podcast, I always make sure I have at least 10 to 15 minutes of just appreciating nature and just sort of being there. Or sometimes it's with a friend or my sister, and getting up while the world still sleeps. So super early in the morning and going for a walk, which I just love doing. Don't love getting up that early, but since becoming a mum, Lilith's really taught me how to get up just like that at any time. Bless her. So it's usually some sort of movement. I will generally fast in the morning, so I'll get up and I'll do warm water. So I'll have, close to about maybe a litre of warm water. And then when I get home, I would love to say, some mornings I'll get a sauna in. Often for me, it's fitting. This is what I've really noticed with being a mum, is that things that I would have done, I would have got up and, done movement, I would have fasted, I would have done some bit of journaling or something like that. Now I'm trying to get that time where I can. So movement generally, fasting. Then I'll, sort of sit down with her, start the morning with her, and then I'll get a sauna in the day where she's napping or when my partner Ben comes home. We'll sort of tag team and use the sauna. Or if she's sleeping, both of us can have a sauna. And then it's I'm really big on nutrition. So for me, I'm always making sure that I'm getting all the right nutrition into her. I like to make sure that I do something fun and really present with her as well. So whether it's we get out and go for a walk, it's taking her to a park. Yesterday we went to the zoo. So I like to, and then I sort of the rest of the day if she's sleeping, I'll try get some work done. I will read. I love reading. So wherever I can, I read, or I listen to a lot of audio these days because I find that it's, I've got more time to listen to audio if I'm commuting in the car or something like that. So, yeah, I guess the same things that were important to me 5-10 years ago are still important. I'm still doing them. It's a little bit broken up and a little bit more segmented in the way that I perform that. Postpartum, for me, when we decided that we're going to have Lila, I fell pregnant with Lila at 40. Or just before I turned 40, so I was 40 when I had her. And for me, I really focused on our nutrition prior to conceiving, and then it's been a really big focus for me postpartum as well, just putting all that nutrients back into the body, because it is bigger than doing any sporting event you've ever done. It's amazing what the human body does. And so for me, I'm really big on putting nutrients back into my body. Sleep has been obviously a big one that I've been working on, and I've got this Aura ring that I wear.
Cool.
Which, yes, that tells me how much sleep I don't have. Although I've just cracked it. In the past, probably I think it's about 2 or 3 months, I started getting a lot more deep sleep again, which I feel like a new human. It's amazing sleep.
How did you do that?
Okay, so I've been making sure that I don't obviously do screens at nighttime. I've got the blue blocker glasses. I set my phone on that red, so it's really red, because I'm always looking at, if I'm looking at social media, it's pictures of food, and they don't look as appealing, when they're bright red. So it means that I don't look at that as often. I won't look at a screen at least an hour or two before going to sleep. I take throughout the day, so I've started drinking coffee again, which I wasn't before, but when I have a coffee or I'll make a matcha, that is loaded with medicinal mushrooms. So I've got a medicinal mushroom addiction. So I'll put medicinal mushrooms in there that help with energy, endurance, with supporting our adrenals. So I take herbs that support my adrenals, because I really find being a mum that you're sort of on all the time. You sort of, you're just ready to go, ready to rescue your toddler from falling over or whatever it is that you need to. I could hear her when she wake up. So the game changers for me have been no screens. I started taking magnesium, consistently taking magnesium, which obviously relaxes our mind as well as our body, and that has been a game changer. As I said, the adrenal support herbs, which is ginseng and ashwagandha and cordyceps mushrooms and things like that, rhodiola as well, for mood and energy. What else am I doing? And some CBD. So I've got some hemp CBD as well. So
is that in oil form or patch form?
Yeah, no, in oil form. So I've got that, and I find that that works really well as well. So I guess it's a combination of those sorts of things, and yoga nidra.
Oh yeah.
So for me, and this is something I have found since becoming a mum, is that before I could sit down and sort of quiet my mind a little bit easier before becoming a mum, but since becoming a mum, I find it a little bit harder sometimes to quiet my mind. And I find that a yoga nidra, because I guess it takes you on a bit of a journey, is that that for me, I find just much easier to do. And also because I'm a health geek, and when I look at my readings for my Aura ring, which I get on my phone, when I incorporate yoga nidra into my life, like whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon or evening, because for me it's just whenever, Lila's sort of asleep or doing something else before I go to bed, my heart rate variability, which is obviously a measure of, our health, our stress, those sorts of things, heart rate variability. So that increases, which is a true measure of our health. So for me, and I really notice that my sleep is impacted if, I've had a stressful day, or if I've got something on. I'm currently studying at the moment as well. So I've got an assignment due. So because I've been thinking about that more, I've noticed my heart rate variability has changed. I've noticed that my sleep has changed a little bit. So, or if I have a fight with my partner, or, those sorts of fun things, like how much our stress in our life affects us. And that's why I think those adrenal support herbs and that magnesium have layered really well with each other, as well as those medicinal mushrooms.
Yeah, that's a great little kind of, stack of little things there. What form do you take the magnesium in?
So I do, because obviously our body transdermally, we absorb magnesium, I think it's 75% more than when we actually are taking it orally. So I have got a magnesium spray that I put onto my body, so my thighs, my arms, under breast area. And then I also take magnesium as well. So I take one orally as well. Obviously, it's then in foods like your dark chocolates, your leafy greens, all of those sorts of things. But I have found for me, depending on, and this is a whole nother podcast, but depending on where you're sourcing your food from and the nutrients that are in the soil and, the quality of the food that you're sourcing, we generally do farmers markets and grow a lot. But, yeah, I've found that I've needed to supplement both orally and transdermally with magnesium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, magnesium, my partner's a kinesiologist, and pretty much everyone comes into her practice in a stressful state. And she's often recommending magnesium, and it just makes such an amazing difference, like quickly too. Even sometimes I'll have a stressful couple of days, and then I'll go home and I'm like, okay, I need a Epsom salt bath right now, and I'll put Epsom salt, some Himalayan salts, and some essential oils and things, and light some candles, and I'll just sleep better that night because I've gotten some magnesium in. And then when you start to actually take it daily with a spray, or like you said, orally, people notice amazing things really quickly.
It's just that layering effect. And I would love, like I have done float tanks, and when I did float tanks, I did one, and I think I did 3 for 3 weeks consecutively. The difference that I found, and even to the way that I responded to things, it was just like this. I found that things didn't bother me as much. Like it was really interesting reflecting, going, I felt a lot calmer. I felt a lot more like things aren't bothering me as much, like just from having those float tanks, which I would love to get more baths in, but I don't get as many baths as I'd like to anymore.
I feel like there might be a couple more years of raising a small human before that.
Well, we've got Lila in the sauna a couple of times, so we put her in at the end, and obviously with the door open, and because she loves it, like she gets so excited. And she I get excited for, I guess, how she's going to grow up, because we've got that. I'm looking out there because I've got our ice bath thing out there. So we do the saunas, and then we jump into the cold water and do cold water plunges as well. So those sorts of things have also made a difference to my sleep as well. So having the sauna has made a huge difference as well. And trying to get a sauna, Ben's fantastic. He does one like pretty much every single day. I'm more like 4 times a week.
Yeah, that's still a good amount.
Well, it's just for me, it's time. Like by the time it gets to the end of the day, I'm like, have I had a sauna today? But those, and when I'm not plunging into the cold water, it's those cold showers like that I found has really helped with my sleep. So I think it's like anything, it's that sort of holistic approach of looking at it, tackling it from different angles to get a better, more rounded sleep. And the other thing actually, because I had somebody asking me the other day about sleep, and something that I didn't think about because I breathe through my nose. And when I train, I breathe through my nose. I train myself to make sure that I keep my jaw closed, especially boxing, and I breathe through my nose because then the body calms down and I can train harder, faster because I'm breathing only through my nose. But for people that sleep and mouth breathe, and how much, they're not getting as much oxygen in their body. So, and that's been something I do with Lila. Like if I walk into her room and she's got her mouth open, I just close her mouth. Like in Native American Indian tribes and different tribes, they would always make sure that their children only breathe through their nose because we get so much more oxygen. So people that are mouth breathers and don't breathe through their nose while they're sleeping at night find that they wake up just feeling exhausted the next day and haven't gotten to a restful sleep. Because I think it's 20% more oxygen we get when we breathe through our nose.
Yeah, it's something like that. There's a great book called Breathe.
Yes, I've got it.
Yeah, I can't remember the author, but
James. I think it's James.
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, talks all about that. And yeah, I did the same thing, train myself to breathe through my nose, and it does make a difference. You just kind of more calm in a way.
Well, Ben, my partner Ben, is a mouth breather, and so he actually has been experimenting with taping his mouth while he sleeps at night. And he's like, the way that I feel in the morning is completely different. He's like, this is amazing.
That's incredible.
So for me, I'm blessed. I've always breathed through my nose, and I do throughout the day as well. But for him, it has been a serious game changer.
Yeah, nice. And so tell everyone, we're going to wrap up shortly. So tell everyone a bit about what you do at the Holistic Health Nut and where they can find you if they want to learn more about you or work with you. Yeah, tell us.
Okay, so my website is holistichealthnut.com.au, and also on Instagram, I am Holistic Health Nut. My Facebook business page has been hacked at the moment, so I'm in the process of trying to get that back.
That's painful.
Yeah, it is. So Instagram and my website's the best place to find me. I teach workshops. So I teach workshops on health where we delve into gut health, into keto, into, plant-based. I'm a conscious omnivore, but I do a lot of workshops and have clients that I guess are vegan. So I do a lot of plant-based ones. As I said, I think we've done the gut health one before, so we made some food. So I'm always recreating food and how to make food taste good. So I'm super big on making food super nutrient dense, but also making it taste good, because if it doesn't taste good, I'm not going to eat it. And I then work with clients one-on-one and do health coaching. So, and I can do that face-to-face, or I have some clients that I do that online with as well. So I do different programs depending on the client's needs, and we do checking in and I guess going through their lifestyle and looking at all the different areas of health and how to implement more healthy habits and practice, fleshing out their goals, what they are, what they're wanting to achieve, things like that.
Yeah, and for anyone who is listening to this on the Sweat It Out podcast, jump onto YouTube and check it out, because you'll see that Aurora is absolutely glowing. You look amazing for just having a child and everything that you've kind of done and been through. So what you're doing is working, clearly. So yeah, go and check Aurora out online. Aurora, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I just have a feeling people are going to want to have you on again so we can talk about gut health or something else. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. If you head to the iHealth Sauna website or our YouTube, you can see Aurora and I did a webinar about a month ago, and we made 2 real gut healthy recipes and a beautiful healthy chocolate recipe. Everyone, or not everyone, but a few people in our office made those. I went home and made the sauerkraut. Then we made some kimchi. I made the coconut yogurt. Someone else went home and made the chocolate, and we're all just like, oh my God.
Well, with the chocolate, we forgot, but what you can do is that you can put probiotics in there, and then it's gut health. Then it's got health and chocolate.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, but no, they're amazing. So you can go and check those out. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it. And,
thank you very much, Alex. I have. Thank you.
No worries. We'll see you soon.